Wealthy billionaire flirts with mistress, but when pregnant wife leaves silently, he panics. Ariana Mitchell believed she was living a fairy tale. Her husband, Ethan Blackwood, was a self-made millionaire who showered her with affection until one day everything changed. Whispers of a mistress, Nicole Davenport, began to swirl in hushed gossip circles. Ariana, newly pregnant and desperate to protect her family, struggled to reconcile Ethan's betrayal with the memory of the kind, supportive partner she once knew. One morning, the unthinkable happened. Ariana vanished, leaving behind only a cryptic farewell letter. As Ethan panics and their glamorous world begins to unravel, an explosive question looms overhead. Will his love for Ariana be enough to bring her home? Ariana Mitchell could recall the moment she first laid eyes on Ethan Blackwood as though it had happened 5 minutes ago. It was a crisp October afternoon in Los Angeles, the sun bleaching the city's skyline in a warm haze, when she bumped into him, literally in front of a local organic market on Melrose Avenue. She had stumbled over a crack in the sidewalk, and Ethan caught her wrist before she tumbled to the ground. Their eyes locked, Ariana's wide with embarrassment, Ethan's sparkling with concern, and the slightest hint of amusement. For Ariana, that single moment was charged with possibility, a spark that lit up her mundane life of 9-to-5 office drudgery. Back then, she had been a project manager at a small tech startup, her days filled with endless spreadsheets and anxious Zoom calls. She had come from a modest background, the daughter of a retired schoolteacher and a small-town librarian. But from the instant Ethan steadied her, she knew she had encountered someone extraordinary. Ethan was unlike anyone she had met before, tall with a confident posture and dressed in a tailored suit that screamed elegance. He looked like he stepped off the pages of GQ. He carried himself with an understated but unmistakable authority, the sort of man who commanded any room he entered. Conversation flowed easily from that first meeting. At the time, he was in the early stages of building his real estate empire, flipping houses in Southern California's most sought-after neighborhoods. He was brimming with dreams and plans, each one grander than the last. They exchanged numbers. Ariana recalled how he insisted on adding her contact immediately, typing in her name with a grin. A week later, they met for coffee at the Westin Bonaventure Hotel downtown. By the end of that day, Ariana found herself laughing more than she had in years. She admired Ethan's drive, his capacity for big, audacious goals, and how he combined business sense with an almost childlike optimism. He told her stories of his past, how he grew up in a cramped studio apartment with a single mother, how he vowed to never let poverty define him. He was on a mission to climb the ranks of real estate moguls, and he refused to let anyone stand in his way. Their relationship progressed as though it was scripted by the universe. Within months, Ariana felt enveloped in a cocoon of security, love, and excitement. Ethan introduced her to a world she had only glimpsed on television: black tie fundraisers at the Beverly Wilshire, weekend getaways in Napa Valley, dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants where the waiting list stretched for months. It was intoxicating, an upgrade from her routine that she never thought possible. When Ethan proposed to her under a brilliant December sky, in front of a small choir singing Christmas carols outside the Bradbury Building, she said yes without hesitation. The wedding itself was a spectacle. They rented out a private garden in Malibu, the ocean waves providing a rhythmic soundtrack to their vows. Ariana's mother cried quietly through the entire ceremony. Ethan's mother held Ariana's hands for a full minute afterward, whispering a heartfelt welcome to our family. They honeymooned in the Maldives, where they soared across turquoise waters in seaplanes and lounged on white sandy beaches in a villa perched above the ocean. In the early days of their marriage, Ariana felt she had found her forever home. She and Ethan shared everything: business goals, personal triumphs, silly inside jokes. To Ariana's delight, Ethan confided in her about every real estate acquisition, every potential venture. She felt valued, not just as a partner, but as a collaborator in his empire. Little did she know, the foundation beneath her picture-perfect life was not as solid as it appeared. Unbeknownst to her, cracks had begun to appear, tiny at first, hidden in the shadows of Ethan's newfound success. Ariana, naive in her devotion, failed to notice how Ethan's gaze would wander at business events, or how texts on his phone became more frequent, private, and guarded. She chalked these up to the demands of a growing empire, dismissing any niggling doubts. After all, they were living a dream, and Ariana had no reason yet to question its authenticity. 6 months into their marriage, Ariana began to feel changes in her body. At first, she attributed her fatigue to the stress of supporting Ethan's rapidly expanding ventures. She was constantly traveling with him, touring properties from San Francisco's Pacific Heights to Beverly Hills. She prided herself on being not just a wife, but a trusted partner in their enterprise. But the subtle signs kept accumulating. She felt lightheaded in the mornings, struggled to keep food down, and experienced an almost magnetic pull to her bed. Simple errands became taxing. Climbing the stairs in their newly purchased Mediterranean-style mansion in Brentwood winded her more than usual. Ariana started skipping out on some of Ethan's business dinners, preferring to curl up at home with a mug of ginger tea and a warm blanket. Ethan, always lost in his own swirl of phone calls and strategic meetings, noticed her absences only in passing. "You all right, darling?" he would ask, eyes flickering briefly with concern before returning to his phone. Eventually, Ariana visited Dr. Anita Crowley, a trusted OB-GYN recommended by her best friend, Valerie Cook. Valerie had insisted that Ariana be proactive, and after some hesitant days, Ariana picked up the phone and made an appointment. Within minutes of the routine examination, Dr. Crowley's eyes lit up with a warm smile. "Ariana, you're pregnant," she said. The news hit Ariana like a tidal wave of emotions: joy, surprise, anxiety. She had always wanted a family, and Ethan had occasionally mentioned how he couldn't wait to be a father, sharing little fantasies of teaching their child to swim at the beach or reading bedtime stories under a giant oak tree in the backyard. Yet she also felt a flicker of worry. Their life was hectic. Ethan's schedule was relentless, and he frequently traveled to finalize deals. Would he be ready for the responsibilities of fatherhood? Buoyed by Dr. Crowley's gentle reassurance and excited by the possibilities, Ariana decided to announce the pregnancy on a quiet Friday night. She planned a simple surprise. She cooked Ethan's favorite meal, roast chicken with lemon and thyme, paired with a crisp Caesar salad. She set the dining table by the pool, placing candles and fresh flowers around it. The moonlight glistened over the still water, creating a surreal, romantic ambiance that reminded her of their honeymoon nights in the Maldives. Ethan arrived home later than expected, stepping through the door with a half-distracted smile. He smelled of expensive cologne and the faint scent of whiskey, as if he'd come straight from a celebratory drink. Ariana cleared her throat. "Surprise dinner," she said softly, beckoning him outside. He kissed her cheek, muttered a quick apology for his lateness, and then followed her into the backyard. For a moment, he seemed genuinely touched by her effort. They ate quietly, the air thick with unspoken words. Ariana's heart pounded harder with every passing second. Finally, during dessert chocolate soufflé, carefully prepared under Valerie's guidance, Ariana's courage rose to the surface. "There's something important I need to tell you," she said, her voice tremulous but determined. She opened a small box, revealing a baby's pacifier, tied with a blue and pink ribbon. Ethan stared at the object in confusion before realization dawned on him. "Ah, you, Ariana. Are you pregnant?" he asked, eyes widening. He pushed back his chair and stood, pacing in a tight circle before kneeling beside her. A radiant smile spread across Ariana's face, tears gathering in her eyes. "We're going to be parents, Ethan." He enveloped her in a tight hug, peppering her face with kisses. In that moment, his relief and excitement felt genuine. He even laughed, a booming sound that echoed across the yard. "I'm going to be a father," he repeated, awestruck. For the rest of the evening, any tension or distance Ariana had sensed in recent weeks seemed to melt away. Ethan was attentive, rubbing her shoulders, helping her to bed, making her laugh with jokes about baby names. Ariana closed her eyes that night, feeling optimistic. She believed a baby would fortify their marriage, binding them even more closely. Any past doubts about Ethan's loyalty or wandering attention dissipated at least for the moment. The morning after revealing her pregnancy, Ariana felt an invincible kind of hope blossom within her. She savored the feeling as she sipped decaffeinated tea in the conservatory, watching the sunrise paint the sky in pink and orange hues. Ethan had left early, heading to a breakfast meeting at the Beverly Hills Hotel. He had kissed her cheek before leaving, whispering, "Take care of yourself and our little one," in a tone that filled her heart to the brim. Yet life has a cruel way of puncturing illusions. Over the next few weeks, Ariana noticed subtle changes in Ethan's behavior. Though he often came home with lavish gifts, a designer handbag here, a sparkling bracelet there, he became more elusive, always lost in phone calls or replying to frantic text messages. Whenever she tried to discuss the pregnancy, he hurriedly brushed through the conversation. "We'll figure it out," he'd say, as though fatherhood was just another item on a checklist. A turning point arrived when Ariana attended a charity gala hosted by the influential Morgan family. She had gone alone. Ethan claimed he was swamped with finalizing a multi-million-dollar property deal. As Ariana glided through the opulent venue in a flowing silver gown, she ran into an old acquaintance. Julia Rice, a well-connected socialite known for trading in high-stakes gossip. Julia's typical bright grin seemed forced as she approached Ariana. "You look radiant, dear," Julia said, scanning Ariana from head to toe. Her gaze lingered on Ariana's slight baby bump, still modest but discernible under the dress. "Pregnancy suits you." Ariana smiled politely, her curiosity piqued by Julia's tense posture. "Thank you, Julia. I feel wonderful." Julia hesitated, fingering her diamond-studded clutch. "I've seen Ethan at a few events lately. Without you. He always says you're busy resting." Ariana tried to brush it off. "He's been to many real estate mixers and fundraisers lately." "I can't attend them all. Doctor's orders, I need my rest." Julia cleared her throat, eyes darting as though she were crossing a dangerous line. "I'm not trying to pry, but I heard from a reliable source that he's been seen quite often with another woman." Nicole Davenport? Ariana's stomach constricted as though she'd swallowed lead. She struggled to keep her face neutral. "Nicole Davenport? I'm not familiar with her." Julia pursed her lips sympathetically. "She's, quite well known in the art circles. A patron of several galleries. Rumor has it, she's been more than just a business acquaintance to Ethan." A rush of heat soared through Ariana, equal parts anger and fear. She forced a dismissive laugh. "It's probably just speculation. People love to gossip." Julia nodded quickly, as if relieved to have delivered the message. "Of course. I just wanted you to be aware in case." Ariana barely heard the end of Julia's sentence. It was as though a loud roar had filled her ears, drowning out the elegant chatter and tinkling champagne glasses around them. She spent the rest of the evening putting on a performance of composure, engaging in polite small talk and forcing laughter at jokes. She hardly registered All the while, a single name echoed in her mind: Nicole Davenport. That night, Ariana returned to the empty mansion. Ethan had texted that he would be out late negotiating deals. Alone in the dark, her imagination ran wild. She recalled fleeting moments that suddenly carried a new weight: Ethan's cryptic phone calls, the times he returned home smelling of perfume that definitely wasn't hers, receipts for expensive gifts she never received. She fought against the rising panic, reminding herself that she had no tangible proof. But doubt is like a match to a haystack. Once lit, it can quickly set everything ablaze. Ariana tossed and turned, haunted by the possibility that her husband's focus was not only on his business empire, but also on another woman, Nicole Davenport. Her name insinuated itself into every corner of Ariana's life, like a dark spectre refusing to fade. 2 weeks after the gala, Ariana found herself unable to stand the uncertainty. She needed answers, something more concrete than a rumor whispered at a charity event. So, one afternoon, Ariana took a bold step. She visited a private investigator named Ian Delgado, a retired LAPD detective with a reputation for discretion. Ian's office was small, tucked away in a nondescript strip mall in Santa Monica. A battered sign reading Delgado Investigations hung above the door. Inside, Ariana was greeted by an organized chaos of filing cabinets and half-filled coffee cups. Ian himself was a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, sharp eyes, and an unassuming demeanor. "I usually handle corporate theft and background checks," he told Ariana, "but I can certainly look into personal matters." He studied her carefully, trying to gauge her resolve. Ariana squared her shoulders, her voice calm but determined. I just need confirmation. Someone's name is swirling around. Nicole Davenport. I want to know if there's anything real behind these rumors." Ian nodded solemnly, scratched a few notes on a notepad, and promised he would be in touch. He didn't press her for more details, perhaps sensing that Ariana was close to her emotional breaking point. In the meantime, Ariana tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy. She devoted her energy to prenatal care, reading every pregnancy guide she could get her hands on. She accompanied Valerie to baby stores, selecting soft blankets and onesies. She reminded herself constantly the baby needed a healthy mother, not one riddled with stress. Yet the anxiety gnawed at her from the inside, and she found herself flinching whenever Ethan's phone buzzed unexpectedly. One night, after Ethan returned home from a late meeting, Ariana found a moment of courage to broach the subject. They were in the living room. She wore a loose maternity dress, while Ethan loosened his tie and sank into the sofa. A half-finished glass of whiskey perched on the side table, the ice clinking softly. "So," Ariana began, forcing a casual tone, "I heard about someone named Nicole Davenport at the Morgan Gala. People say she's an art patron. Do you know her?" Ethan's hand paused mid-sip. "Who told you about Nicole?" he asked, his tone unreadable. Ariana fought to keep her voice steady. "Just. Someone mentioned you two have been seen together. Thought you might be working on a business deal?" His eyes flickered, and Ariana's heart lurched. For a split second, he wore the expression of a child caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Then he relaxed his features into a passable mask of indifference. "Nicole is a contact I made at a fundraiser. She's looking to invest in real estate for a few art galleries. Nothing more." Ariana willed herself to believe him. She wanted to believe in their future, their growing family. But the conversation felt rehearsed, as though Ethan had a script ready for such an occasion. The hint of whiskey on his breath mixed with her swirling doubts, leaving her more uneasy than before. Days passed with agonizing slowness. Ariana dove deeper into household tasks, organizing the nursery with laser focus. She found a painter to do a mural of a sky filled with twinkling stars, a symbol of hope for their child. Whenever Ethan came home, he seemed preoccupied, offering only distant smiles and mindless questions about her health. She couldn't ignore the sense that something was slipping through her fingers. When Ian Delgado finally called, Ariana's heart hammered in her chest. She met him at a small cafe near Venice Beach. Ian handed her a slim folder, his lips set in a tight line. "You might want to brace yourself," he said softly, his voice tinged with sympathy. "I'm sorry, Ariana, but it seems your suspicions were correct." Inside the folder were photographs, time-stamped, each capturing Ethan and Nicole together, hugging outside a restaurant in West Hollywood, entering a luxury condominium in Century City late at night, leaving a trendy art exhibit with their hands entwined. Ariana's breath caught in her throat, tears gathered at the corners of her eyes. She thanked Ian with a trembling voice, paid him, and left the cafe feeling numb. Images from the folder glared at her from the depths of her purse. The truth was undeniable now. Ethan was having an affair. As she walked along the boardwalk, salty sea air stinging her eyes, Ariana felt a torrent of emotions churn within her. Betrayal, heartbreak, rage, desperation. She was 4 months pregnant. How could Ethan do this to her, to them, at such a vulnerable time? She pressed a hand protectively to her belly, making a silent promise to her unborn child, no matter what happened next, she would find the strength to protect their future. Armed with irrefutable proof, Ariana spent days battling an internal storm. She vacillated between confronting Ethan directly and giving him a chance to explain, or leaving him altogether. The mere thought of tearing apart the life they had built made her nauseous, yet the betrayal weighed heavily on her heart. She already felt the energy draining from her every day, and stress only exacerbated the pregnancy fatigue. Finally, one late afternoon, as Ethan prepared for another urgent meeting, Ariana could no longer hold her silence. She cornered him in his study, a polished mahogany sanctuary lined with real estate awards and plaques that bragged of his success. Ethan was in the middle of reading an email on his phone when Ariana placed a single photograph from the folder in front of him, the picture of him and Nicole kissing outside a West Hollywood lounge. The color drained from his face. He blinked, jaw tightening, his phone slipping from his hand onto the desk with a dull thud. For several seconds, neither spoke. A tense hush wrapped around them, so suffocating that Ariana could hear her own pulse thundering in her ears. "I can explain," Ethan finally said, his voice hoarse. Ariana's eyes were bright with tears, her voice trembling. "How do you explain this?" She gestured to the photograph with a shaky hand. "You told me she was just a business contact. That's not what these pictures show. I trusted you. I'm pregnant with your child, Ethan." He ran a hand over his face, as if trying to wipe away the guilt etched into his features. "I made a mistake," he murmured. "I never wanted to hurt you, Ariana. The stress of these deals, the late nights." Nicole was there. "It was. Don't tell me it was just a fling," Ariana snapped, anger flaring as she glared at him. "You lied to me, repeatedly. You chose to do this while I'm carrying your child." Ethan swallowed hard. His eyes flickered with desperation. "It was never serious. I swear, Nicole means nothing compared to you and our baby." Ariana let out a hollow, humorless laugh. "Nothing? You certainly looked invested to me. Did you even think about how this would affect our family? Or were you too busy living in your bubble of indulgence?" He reached out to touch her arm, and she recoiled. "Please, Ariana," he implored, voice trembling. "I love you. Don't give up on us. I'll end it with Nicole right now if you want. I'll prove it. Just give me a chance to fix this." Ariana's tears finally spilled down her cheeks. "I'm tired, Ethan. Tired of your excuses. Tired of feeling second place in my own marriage." She paused, pressing a hand against her abdomen, as if the baby's presence might remind her of what was at stake. Why should I believe a word you say? He inhaled deeply, eyes pooling with regret. Because we have a life together. Because we're having a baby. You're everything to me, Ariana. The moment you showed me that pacifier, I felt my whole world change. I was going to end things with Nicole, but I got caught up. I know how it sounds, but please, I need you to believe me. The sincerity in his voice softened Ariana's fury, albeit only slightly. Doubt clawed at her from every angle. A part of her wanted to trust him, to hope that this was a temporary lapse, a grim chapter that could be closed. Another part of her, raw with betrayal, screamed that she could never truly trust him again. Eventually, she whispered, "I need time. I can't just forgive you overnight. I have to think about the baby." Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. He looked as though he wanted to hold her, but her stony expression kept him at bay. He retreated from the study, murmuring, "I'll cancel the meeting. Stay home tonight. Whatever you need." But Ariana shook her head. "Go," she said flatly, unable to face him any longer. She turned her back on him, tears silently streaming down her cheeks. He stood there for a moment, torn between leaving and staying, before quietly collecting his phone and stepping out. The echo of the door closing resonated through the house. Ariana sank into the leather armchair, hugging her belly. The illusions she once cherished her happily ever after, the adoring father-to-be lay in shambles at her feet. Over the next few weeks, Ariana slipped into a haze of uncertainty. Ethan did indeed cancel all public appearances with Nicole Davenport. He became more attentive at home, even if the air between them remained strained. He'd bring Ariana breakfast in bed or run out late at night to fulfill her pregnancy cravings. He offered to attend every doctor's appointment and prenatal yoga session. On the surface, he was trying, but Ariana couldn't shake the disquieting notion that his remorse might be more about getting caught than genuine guilt. Torn between the love she once knew and the anger simmering beneath her fragile calm, Ariana found herself drifting through each day. She kept the evidence of Ethan's affair locked away in her desk drawer, unable to look at the photographs again. But they were forever branded into her memory. The tension took a toll on her health. She lost her appetite, struggled to sleep, and her OB-GYN cautioned her about stress levels affecting the baby. One evening, after Ethan had tucked her into bed, Ariana stared at the ceiling, feeling trapped by her own indecision. Her child deserved stability, free from the haunting shadow of mistrust. And if Ethan truly was changing, maybe she should give their marriage another chance. But a small voice inside her insisted that trust was like fine crystal, once shattered. The cracks could never be fully mended. That voice grew louder when Ariana woke up one morning and noticed Ethan's phone buzzing on the nightstand while he was in the shower. The screen displayed only a number, but curiosity overcame her. She picked it up. The chat window revealed messages from Nicole. Ariana scrolled, her stomach clenching at the intimate tone, sprinkled with regrets about how things ended too soon. One text read, "I miss you. I hate sleeping alone." The timestamp showed it was sent just last night. Ariana's hands shook. It was the final push she needed. She knew Ethan would continue his double life as long as it was convenient. The regret and promises she had glimpsed in him were superficial at best. She couldn't condemn herself nor her unborn child to a future filled with such duplicity. Heart hammering, she placed the phone back on the nightstand, tears streaming down her face. When Ethan emerged from the shower, she pretended to be asleep, waiting for him to leave for the day. As soon as he was gone, Ariana took action. She called her friend Valerie, voice trembling with urgency, and asked for a favor. Could the first stay at your place for a while? Within hours, she had packed 2 large suitcases with essentials, clothes, medical records, a few sentimental items. She carefully left her wedding ring on the dresser, alongside a handwritten letter. In it, she explained that she was leaving for the sake of her sanity and the baby's well-being, that she could no longer endure the emotional torment. She promised she wouldn't keep the baby from him forever, but she needed distance to heal. Wiping away tears, Ariana surveyed the master bedroom one final time. Memories of happier days threatened to break her resolve, but she pressed on, fueled by the fresh pain of Nicole's text messages. She made her way downstairs, her steps deliberate, each footfall echoing in the emptiness of the luxurious mansion that now felt more like a prison than a home. Valerie arrived in an Uber, eyes red with sympathetic tears. Ariana climbed into the car, never looking back as the driver pulled away from the place where her dreams had once flourished, only to be crushed under the weight of betrayal. By the time Ethan returned that evening, Ariana was gone, leaving him with nothing but the note and a silent, cavernous house. For the first time since their chance meeting on Melrose Avenue, Ethan Blackwood would truly feel the consequences of his actions and the harrowing emptiness of losing the woman who once anchored his world. Ethan came home to an eerie stillness. No aroma of dinner wafted from the kitchen. No soft music played through the house's speakers. Gone was the comforting glow of lamps and Ariana's gentle laughter. Instead, the only thing that greeted him was a single piece of paper resting on the foyer. Consola letter in Ariana's delicate handwriting. He tore it open, scanning the words in disbelief. "Ethan, I need to protect myself and our child. I can't stay here and pretend. I'm leaving. Please respect my need for space and time. I won't keep your child from you, but I can't go on like this. Don't look for me. I'll contact you when I'm ready." His mind reeled. Ariana had left. For a brief moment, his chest tightened, and he fought to breathe. Every room he walked through reaffirmed her absence. Her favorite mug gone from the kitchen, her slippers missing from beside the bed, her closet emptied of essentials. The wedding ring glimmering on the dresser felt like a silent condemnation. He remembered the day he first met her, the rush of adrenaline when he caught her from falling. He recalled how their eyes locked, how pure her smile had been. Over the past months, he'd taken that pure love for granted, indulging in meaningless flirtations and eventually crossing a line that shattered his marriage. Suddenly, the illusions he had so carefully built came crashing down, leaving only a profound sense of loss. Panicked, he called her phone repeatedly, each dial tone sending a spike of dread through his veins. "Voicemail," he texted her, voice trembling as he left messages. "Ariana, please, call me. Let's talk this out." He tried to reassure himself. Maybe she went to a hotel, maybe she was just giving him a scare. But as the hours ticked by, no response came. In the days that followed, Ethan's life spiraled. He showed up to his board meetings late, or sometimes not at all. He'd snap at his assistants for trivial mistakes. His business partners noticed his fraying demeanor and murmured among themselves, uncertain about what was eroding his usual composure. Desperate to locate Ariana, he called her parents in Seattle, but they claimed they hadn't heard from her. He even reached out to Dr. Crowley, who curtly told him she couldn't divulge patient information. The line between professional courtesy and personal concern blurred, but the doctor remained tight-lipped, emphasizing confidentiality. He considered hiring a private investigator, perhaps the same one Ariana had used, but decided against it for fear of pushing her even further away. He wanted her to come back on her own terms, but each passing day without word wore away at his resolve. Every time he walked past the half-finished nursery walls, painted a tranquil shade of pale lavender, he found himself paralyzed by guilt and sadness. Tiny baby clothes hung neatly on hangers. A rocking chair stood in the corner, awaiting the arrival of a child whose mother had vanished. Anger flickered beneath his remorse. Nicole Davenport, now aware that Ariana had left, tried to reconnect with Ethan, offering her ear and her consolation. But Ethan recoiled, finally seeing what he had sacrificed for a fleeting dalliance. The expensive wines, the glitzy parties, the adrenaline rush of being desired by a sophisticated woman like Nicole, none of it mattered anymore. In fact, it sickened him. He began to shun Nicole's calls, telling her in no uncertain terms that it was over and that she should never contact him again. Her initial reaction was one of hurt and disbelief, but soon she resigned herself to the outcome. She was intelligent enough to see that whatever illusions they shared were dwarfed by Ethan's desperation to restore his marriage. As the week stretched into 2, Ethan realized he needed professional help, someone to confide in, someone who could guide him through the wreckage. He booked sessions with a therapist, Dr. Marianne Goldstein, who specialized in marital issues and emotional crises. During these sessions, Ethan confronted the toxic pattern that had led him astray, an insatiable appetite for more power, more luxury, more admiration fed by the success that once seemed to fulfill him. Yet all the therapy in the world couldn't quell the burning question that tormented him each night. Where was Ariana? Each time he closed his eyes, he pictured her alone, pregnant, perhaps crying herself to sleep in some unknown place. He feared for her safety, her health, and the emotional toll of their situation. She was carrying his child, a tiny life he had dreamed about cradling in his arms. As the days dragged on, that intangible bond, fatherhood, strengthened his resolve. He made a silent vow. He would not let this be the end of their story. He would make amends, prove he was worthy of her trust again. Even if she refused to return, he would spend the rest of his life trying to earn her forgiveness. The emptiness that enveloped him became both his punishment and his catalyst for change. Ariana found refuge at Valerie Cook's modest apartment in Santa Monica, a far cry from the opulent surroundings she had grown accustomed to. Valerie was a pillar of support, offering her friend a spare bedroom she normally used as a home office. Despite its cramped space, Ariana felt an odd sense of comfort there. She relished the anonymity, the freedom to process her heartache without scrutiny. Valerie, a marketing executive with an empathetic soul, juggled Ariana's emotional roller coaster alongside her demanding work schedule. She stocked the fridge with healthy snacks and ensured Ariana took her prenatal vitamins. In their quiet evenings, they'd watch reruns of old sitcoms, sharing gentle laughter as Ariana's mind wandered from the nest of turmoil she had left behind. Though Ariana told Ethan not to seek her out, a flicker of guilt gnawed at her. She knew her decision had blindsided him. Yet every time she recalled the photographs of Ethan and Nicole or the text messages that revealed their ongoing connection, she felt justified in her actions. She needed to protect herself and her unborn baby from a foundation built on lies. One day, Ariana couldn't shake an overwhelming sense of isolation. She craved reassurance, something to ease her anxiety over the baby's well-being. She booked an appointment at a nearby clinic, using her maiden name, Mitchell, to maintain privacy. Valerie took time off work to accompany her, holding her hand as the ultrasound technician pressed the wand against Ariana's abdomen. The whooshing sound of the baby's heartbeat brought tears to Ariana's eyes. For a moment, she felt a surge of strength. "I'm going to be a mother. I can do this," she told herself. Outside the clinic, they ran into an old mutual friend, James Donovan, who had no idea Ariana was pregnant. She almost panicked, worried he might let the information slip to someone who could trace her whereabouts. But James only smiled warmly and hurried along after exchanging pleasantries. Ariana realized that her life could no longer be kept in a bubble of secrecy forever. Eventually, she'd have to face Ethan or, at the very least, figure out a co-parenting plan. In the meantime, she sought legal counsel, contacting a discreet family lawyer recommended by Ian Delgado. The lawyer, Caroline Evans, specialized in divorce and custody issues. Ariana laid out her story, tears pooling when she recounted the betrayal. Caroline offered a measured perspective. You're well within your rights to ask for spousal support, custody arrangements, even compensation for emotional distress, given the circumstances, she explained, her tone professional yet kind. But no court will force you to return to an environment where you feel unsafe or emotionally harmed. Your baby's well-being is paramount. Initially, Ariana wasn't sure if she wanted a divorce. She and Ethan had shared too many dreams, too many cherished moments. Part of her still yearned for a reconciliation, for a miraculous fix that might restore what was broken. Another part recognized that some fractures run too deep to mend. To ease her stress, Ariana started journaling. Each night, before bed, she'd pour her conflicted feelings onto paper: anger, sadness, love, regret. The act of writing calmed her, helped her piece together her swirling emotions. She wrote letters addressed to her unborn child, explaining why she left, how she wanted to build a peaceful life, free from deception. She also wrestled with the question of whether Ethan should be present for the birth, a milestone she'd once imagined they'd experience together. Days turned into weeks, and though Ariana's belly grew, her path forward remained uncertain. Valerie offered unwavering support, but Ariana knew she couldn't stay in this limbo forever. She considered finding a small rental, somewhere she could settle before the baby arrived. Yet each time she browsed listings, a wave of melancholy washed over her. She never envisioned navigating pregnancy as a single, uncertain mother. Occasionally, guilt seeped into her thoughts. She wondered if she'd acted rashly by leaving without more discussion. Perhaps she should have tried therapy before fleeing, but then she'd recall the heartache of discovering Ethan's affair and that single text from Nicole claiming she missed him. Any second guessing dissolved into steel resolve. She refused to raise a child in a household riddled with lies. Still, late at night, as she curled up on the small, comfortable bed in Valerie's spare room, Ariana sometimes missed Ethan's embrace, the safety of his arms, the warmth of his voice when he wasn't hiding behind falsehoods. It was a complicated heartbreak, love and anger wrestling for dominance. She whispered a silent prayer that somewhere, deep down, the man she fell in love with still existed and that his better self could somehow rise above the mistakes he'd made. After several weeks of relative quiet, Ariana's phone buzzed unexpectedly one morning. She glanced at the screen to see a number she didn't recognize. Normally she ignored unknown callers, but something compelled her to answer. On the other end was Dr. Marianne Goldstein, Ethan's therapist. "Hello, Ariana," Dr. Goldstein said gently. "I understand you requested not to be contacted by Ethan, but he came to me in despair, seeking my help. I'm ethically bound to maintain confidentiality, but I also have an obligation to encourage healthy communication, especially regarding the baby." Ariana's heart thudded. Ethan was in therapy? The notion that he'd sought professional help stirred conflicting emotions, cautious hope, and a gnawing suspicion that this might be another ploy. "How did you get my number?" Ariana asked, her voice guarded. "He provided it," the therapist replied, "in the hopes that I could mediate a meeting. He's deeply remorseful and wants to prove his commitment to change. Would you be open to a session with him? A neutral space where you can voice your feelings safely." Ariana hesitated, her hand protectively cradling her baby bump. She had spent weeks wrestling with bitterness and disappointment, but a glimmer of curiosity and a flicker of empathy for Ethan's apparent effort pushed her to agree. "One session," she said firmly. "No promises beyond that." Dr. Goldstein's office was located in a converted craftsman house in Pasadena, surrounded by lush gardens. On the day of the session, Ariana's heart pounded as she walked in. She wore a loose-fitting dress, her bump now unmistakably visible. Ethan was already seated in the waiting area, dressed in a simple collared shirt and slacks, a far cry from his usual tailored suits. his eyes lit with relief and apprehension when he saw her. Inside the cozy therapy room, soft lighting and muted colors created an atmosphere designed for calm reflection. Dr. Goldstein guided them both through an initial check-in. Ethan spoke first, voice laced with desperation. He admitted to his affair, acknowledging his failings without making excuses. He described how his thirst for success, coupled with the thrill of new conquests, had led him astray. Tears rimmed his eyes as he spoke of the endless regret he felt after Ariana left. Ariana listened silently, her jaw clenched, arms wrapped around her belly. When it was her turn to speak, she struggled to keep her voice steady. She recounted the hurt, the broken trust, and the emotional turmoil of carrying his child while discovering his betrayal. The words came out haltingly at first, but soon cascaded in a rush as she confronted him with every painful detail, from the photographs to the text messages. Dr. Goldstein guided the conversation, urging them to practice active listening, to validate each other's feelings. There were moments when Ethan instinctively tried to justify certain actions, only to be gently corrected. Ariana's experience is valid, Dr. Goldstein reminded him. Listen without defending. By the session's end, Ariana felt wrung out but oddly lighter. For the first time, she witnessed Ethan's genuine remorse. She saw how his once unshakable confidence had dissolved into vulnerability. She didn't know if she could ever trust him again, but she did sense a sincerity she hadn't detected before. Outside the office, they lingered awkwardly in the evening light. Ethan cleared his throat. "I won't pressure you, but I'm grateful you showed up. You've given me a sliver of hope." He paused, scanning her face. How's the baby?" Ariana placed a hand on her belly, her voice soft. "Healthy, as far as I know. I'm doing my best." He hesitated, then asked quietly, "Can I walk you to your car?" She nodded, and they strolled together along the stone pathway. She unlocked Valerie's borrowed sedan, placing a hand on the door. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the weight of unspoken possibilities hanging in the air. "Take care of yourself," Ariana said, before slipping into the driver's seat. She didn't extend an invitation to see him again, nor did she reject the idea outright. She needed time to process the raw torrent of emotions the session had unleashed. As she drove away, Ariana glanced in the rearview mirror. Ethan stood there, shoulders sagging, a man on the precipice of a lesson learned too late. Whether that lesson would be enough to mend the chasm between them, time alone would tell. Over the next few weeks, Ariana ventured into a measured dance of cautious cooperation with Ethan. They attended a handful of therapy sessions together, each one stretching the limits of Ariana's patience and Ethan's newfound humility. Dr. Goldstein suggested boundaries. Ariana set rules for communication, limiting Ethan's calls to scheduled times. She also insisted that any talk of getting back together be postponed until after the baby's birth, when she felt more emotionally stable. On the surface, it might have seemed as though she was simply punishing him, but the reality was more complex. Ariana needed a safe space to nurture both her unborn child and her own emotional recovery. The therapy sessions became a crucible where Ethan's growth would either prove genuine or shatter under scrutiny. Gradually, Ariana noticed small shifts in Ethan. He stopped making excuses and owned his mistakes more openly. He also began voluntarily discussing his feelings, his fear of inadequacy as a husband and father, his struggle with the unrelenting need for external validation. It wasn't an overnight transformation, but it held a kernel of truth that intrigued Ariana enough to keep attending. She found herself daring to hope that Ethan might truly be changing. During this time, Ariana's pregnancy advanced into its final trimester. Her belly swelled and the baby's kicks grew stronger. Valerie's apartment felt cramped, and Ariana yearned for more space, a dedicated nursery. When Ethan offered to help her find a temporary rental or even purchase a condominium for her, she faced an inner conflict. Accepting his financial assistance felt like a surrender of her hard-won independence. Yet practicality won out. The baby's well-being took precedence over her pride. So Ariana allowed Ethan to rent a small but comfortable craftsman house in Studio City, a place with a sunlit living room, a cozy kitchen, and a modest garden. She insisted the lease be in her name, even if the checks originated from Ethan's account. He nodded, respecting her need for autonomy. Before long, she moved in, setting up a small nursery in the second bedroom, painting the walls a soft pastel green. She hung a mobile of woodland animals above the crib, feeling a pang of both sadness and resolve each time. She remembered the incomplete nursery she had left behind in Brentwood. One mild afternoon, Ariana found herself assembling a baby dresser, her swollen feet throbbing from hours of standing. The doorbell rang, and to her surprise, Ethan stood on the doorstep, carrying a large box wrapped in floral paper. She frowned slightly, uncertain if she was ready to handle a surprise visit. "I know we only talk on the phone at scheduled times," Ethan said in a low voice. "But I asked Valerie if it would be okay to drop off a gift for the baby. She said you might be open to it." Ariana sighed, stepping aside to let him in. "Valerie and her big heart," she murmured, though part of her felt gratitude. She led him to the living room. The box he carried was larger than she'd anticipated, and she cleared a spot on the coffee table. With a hint of nervousness, Ethan tore off the wrapping paper to reveal a deluxe baby swing, set complete with plush cushions and lullaby options. Ariana fought back a wave of emotion. She had avoided buying one, partly because she was overwhelmed by the myriad of baby products on the market, and partly because she feared how each new purchase would remind her of the absent father. "Thank you," she said quietly, brushing a hand over the swing. "This is thoughtful." He offered a tentative smile. "If you'll let me, I can set it up." She considered it, her gaze lingering on his face. She remembered how his eyes once sparkled with ambition, how that drive had ultimately led him into temptation. Now, those same eyes bore the weight of guilt and longing. She nodded. "All right." As Ethan assembled the swing, Ariana hovered nearby, guiding him to a better angle under the living room light. For the first time in months, they shared a task without the immediate intrusion of anger or heartbreak. She saw a glimmer of the old Ethan, the quick-witted, can-do spirit that had first captivated her. In that fleeting moment, she almost believed in second chances. When the swing was complete, Ethan carefully tested its mechanism, pressing various buttons that unleashed a series of gentle lullabies. Ariana approached and placed a palm on her abdomen. She felt a solid kick, and instinctively her hand went to Ethan's shoulder. "Feel this?" she asked, her voice trembling. He froze, eyes wide, then gingerly placed his hand where hers had been. Another kick followed, and his face illuminated with awe. "That's our baby," he murmured. Tears pricked Ariana's eyes. Yes, our baby. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over her: gratitude, sorrow, hope, uncertainty. She withdrew her hand, uncertain of how long she could hold on to that fragile moment without succumbing to tears. Over the subsequent weeks, Ethan continued to check in, always abiding by Ariana's boundaries. They attended more therapy sessions, gradually delving into the roots of their relationship. They recalled early memories, that fateful day they met on Melrose Avenue, the first time they said, "I love you," their wedding under the Malibu sun. Dr. Goldstein steered them to confront how those recollections could inform a healthier future if they chose to walk that path. Still, Ariana refused to commit to reconciliation. She had enough self-awareness to realize that fear, lingering anger, and battered self-esteem marred her judgment. The emotional wound was far from healed. Each time she and Ethan made progress, an echo of betrayal would resurface. A memory of him returning home late smelling of unfamiliar perfume, or the stinging image of him and Nicole at that West Hollywood lounge. She worried these ghosts might never fully vanish. Then came the day Ariana went into early labor. It was a warm evening, and she was reading in her new living room, occasionally sipping a glass of iced water. A sharp cramp rocketed through her belly. At first, she assumed it was one of the Braxton Hicks contractions she'd been experiencing. But the pain intensified, and soon her water broke. Panic clutched at her heart. She was only 36 weeks along, slightly early, but still within a viable range. She tried calling Valerie, but her friend was stuck in a work conference call and didn't pick up. Ariana's second call was to Ethan, almost on instinct. Her voice trembled. I think the baby's coming." Ethan wasted no time. Within 15 minutes, he was at her doorstep, eyes wild with concern. He helped her into his car, speeding to Cedars Sinai Medical Center. "The entire way," he muttered reassurances, stroking her hair while she inhaled and exhaled through the contractions. At the hospital, nurses whisked Ariana into a room. Dr. Crowley, who had been Ariana's OB-GYN from the start, arrived soon after. The hours that followed were a blur of pain and anxiety. Ethan stood by Ariana's side, holding her hand while she labored through each contraction. Once or twice she screamed at him, anger and pain mixing. He whispered that he understood, that she could direct all her fury at him if it helped her push. And push she did. In a final crescendo of intense pressure, Ariana delivered a baby boy, small but healthy, wailing at the top of his lungs. Tears streamed down her face as the nurse placed the newborn on her chest. She gazed into his reddened, scrunched-up features, overwhelmed by love so fierce it nearly swallowed her whole. Ethan stared at their child, his face a mixture of joy and heartbreak. Ariana glanced at him, uncertain of what this moment meant for them, but in that instant all her focus returned to her son, the precious life she had fought to protect. They named him Oliver James Blackwood, after Ariana's grandfather and Ethan's father. As Oliver was whisked away to be weighed and measured, Ethan followed, hands trembling. Ariana lay back, exhausted, tears of relief and wonder sliding down her cheeks. The future remained murky, but in that hospital room they had created something extraordinary, something that bound them forever. In the days following Oliver's birth, Ariana stayed in the hospital for routine monitoring. She allowed Ethan to be present, to hold their son, change diapers, and feed him tiny bottles of formula. She watched quietly, uncertain if this tenuous partnership would blossom into a family or collapse under the weight of past mistakes. One afternoon, while Oliver napped, Ethan approached Ariana's bedside. He gently took her hand. "Thank you," he said softly, his eyes shining with sincerity, "for allowing me to be here, for trusting me enough to share this moment. I know I've caused you unimaginable pain, and I can't take that back. But I promise I will spend every day trying to be the father Oliver deserves, and if you'll let me, the husband you deserve." Ariana studied him, her heart heavy with the knowledge that trust was more than a promise. It was a commitment rebuilt day by day. She lifted her gaze to Oliver, nestled in a bassinet by the window, sunlight dancing over his soft cheeks. In that fragile moment, she acknowledged that while the future was far from guaranteed, some seeds of hope had taken root. Ariana's journey from betrayed wife to resilient mother shows that sometimes life's deepest wounds can pave the way for unexpected rebirth. The question now is whether Ethan's remorse can translate into genuine change, whether the shattered trust between them can be painstakingly rebuilt for the sake of their son, Oliver. Only time will reveal if this family can navigate the turbulent waters of regret and redemption. Yet their story offers a powerful reminder that love, though delicate, can endure incredible hardships, especially when guided by honesty and the courage to face the truth. Thank you for watching today's emotional roller coaster of a story. If Ariana and Ethan's path to healing moved you, please show your support. Like this video to let us know you want more real-life drama stories. Share it with friends who love a gripping tale. And subscribe to our channel to never miss a new chapter in these heartfelt journeys. Your engagement helps keep this channel thriving, and we appreciate each and every one of you.